Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wolf Pit with another episode of What Are We Eating? Today, we're reviewing Andrew Zimmern's Meatloaf with Mashed Potatoes, which is beef meatloaf topped with ketchup, mashed potatoes, and peas. This 10.5 ounce meal costs $5.94 at, you guessed it, Walmart. If you're unfamiliar with Andrew Zimmern, he's the pompous Squidward lookalike, host of the show Bizarre Foods on the Travel Channel. And to me, he's as bizarre as the foods are that he eats. There's just something about him that creeps me out. But nobody said bizarre people can't cook good food. He's obviously a good enough chef or has the right connections to jump on the Walmart bandwagon of celebrities making frozen dinners. Andrew Zimmern actually has a good chance at having a good meal. Because how can you screw up meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and peas? Well, anything is possible. Gordon Ramsay screwed up fish and chips, and Guy Fieri made a very delicious sloppy Joe and mac and cheese, but found a way to screw that up by putting a minuscule amount of ground beef and pork into the sloppy Joe. To the point, it should have been considered vegetarian friendly and called sloppy Joe flavored mac and cheese. So no matter how pompous and bizarre I think Andrew Zimmern is, his meals have the same opportunity to have an honest review by me for you, the people. Speaking of you, the people, I've had a few viewers have the audacity to ask me to stop saying, for you, the people. Well, first, thank you for the comment, but with all due respect, I will never stop saying, for you, the people. If me saying, for you, the people, annoys you that much, mute the video and turn on closed captioning. Or better yet, just don't watch. We all have a reason for things we do and say, and the people is the reason I do what I do. So enough talking about this and that, let's get into Andrew Zimmern's Meatloaf with Mashed Potatoes. Now pay very close attention to this picture on how they advertise the finished meal. It will become very important later in the video. I still can't find out who actually produces the Gordon Ramsays, the Guy Fieri's, and now the Andrew Zimmern's meals, only that the Golden West Food Group distributes them. So please, if any of you, the people, know, leave it in the comments. Here's the ingredients, and once again, no TVP, so kudos to Andrew. The serving size is the whole bowl, which has 500 calories, 29 grams of total fat, 13 grams of saturated fat, 1 gram of trans fat, 60 milligrams of cholesterol, 1,260 milligrams of sodium, 29 grams of carbohydrates, 2 grams of fiber, 10 grams of sugars, and 20 grams of protein. I have to admit, I'm not educated on trans fats at all. And I've noticed that Gordon Ramsay's and Guy Fieri's had a half a gram of trans fat in both meals. And now Andrew Zimmern's meal has 1 full gram of trans fat. And I've also had many people comment that trans fats are illegal in the United States. And indeed they are. So here's all the information I could find on trans fats for me and you, the people. I found these snippets were quite interesting and educating. For myself, and hopefully for you, the people. So here's Andrew Zimmern's Meatloaf with Mashed Potatoes meal right out of the freezer, and we've gone ahead and vented it per the instructions. Once we vent the film, we're supposed to place the bowl into the microwave for 4 minutes, then lift the film and stir, then microwave for another 2.5 to 3 minutes, or until the center of the dish reaches 165 degrees. And then let the bowl rest for 1 to 2 minutes. After 4 minutes, we lifted the film and stirred. It didn't say to stir the mashed potatoes or the peas. And it's a good thing it didn't, because they were all mixed together. So once we gave the mashed potatoes and the peas a mix, we put it back in the microwave for another 2.5 to 3 minutes. I personally don't care if my food's mixed together. And evidently, Andrew Zimmern or the producer of this meal didn't care if your food was mixed together either. If they did care, they would have spent the extra half cent to put this meal in a container with separators. So it shows me one of two things. Absolutely no thought was given on how the consumer would receive the food, or they were too cheap to put the meal in a divided container. Now that I think about it, it's probably for both reasons. It's like their way of thinking is put a name and a picture of a celebrity on a frozen meal, and who cares what it looks or tastes like? Real quick, back to the food being mixed together. There are people that do not want their food mixed together, and some people will actually lose their mind if it is mixed together. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way at all. According to the snippet, it's a mild form of OCD, which I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to pronounce the term. Here's our Andrew Zimmern's meatloaf with mashed potatoes meal after microwaving for a total of 6.5 minutes. There's really no need to describe what it looks like. Pictures speak for themselves. However, I will say it smells really good. But the real question has to be asked. Why don't they put this picture on the box? So we mixed up the peas and mashed potatoes together, like we really had a choice. We left the petrified peas on the other side of the meatloaf alone, for obvious reasons. So we had to try the mashed potatoes and peas together, so we got a spoonful. So into the old pie hole and down the gullet they went. And the mashed potatoes weren't good and they weren't bad. They were typical frozen meal mashed potatoes, pasty and flavorless. I've had other frozen meals where the peas turned out great when they were cooked by themselves. Great may be a stretch, but they were edible. These peas were hard and like they were raw and uncooked. We got one more spoonful of the mashed potatoes and peas just to ensure we didn't just get some bad peas. And you can tell just by looking at them, they are bad. And once they went into my pie hole and down the gullet, it was confirmed. Those are just the sides. Let's cut in to the star of the bowl, the meatloaf. I wanted to sample the ketchup meatloaf glaze first, which I do love a good sweet ketchup glaze on top of my meatloaf, but I also like meatloaf with gravy as well. Have you ever used a small can of tomato paste in a recipe and then lick off the remaining tomato paste off the spoon? And it tastes like very concentrated tomatoes. And it's something you really wouldn't want to eat on its own. Well, I also wouldn't call it a ketchup glaze, and I also don't want it on my meatloaf. That's exactly what this tastes like. Pure tomato paste. Maybe once it's mixed with the meatloaf, it'll tone itself down and be good. So we got a big old piece of meatloaf. And to be fair, that looks absolutely delicious and very moist. So into the old pie hole and down the gullet it went. First of all, it has a very strong herbal flavor to it, like maybe rosemary or thyme. Other than that, it was very moist and very delicious. But there was a very big problem. So I asked my daughter, who was helping me with the videos, to take a bite and tell me exactly what she thought it tasted like. So she cut off a big piece, and this time into her pie hole and down her gullet it went. She looked at me with her eyes wide open and she said, "That is delicious." And then she said exactly what I was thinking. It tasted like meatballs with tomato sauce. I've never had a meatloaf that even came close to tasting like this. At this point, I was literally at a loss for words, and that doesn't happen very often. So at this point, I was very confused at how to rate a meal where the sides were terrible, but the main part of the dish was absolutely delicious, but tasted like something it wasn't supposed to be. I'm pretty sure that Andrew Zimmern is not one of you, the people. So it's very unlikely he'll see this video. And besides YouTube, I really don't get on social media. So if there's any way possible, you could get a message to Andrew Zimmern that Larry Wolf would like to see him do an honest review on his meatloaf with mashed potatoes frozen dinner. Actually, I dare him, and I guarantee you he won't do it. I'm not trying to get into a childish spat with him, but these celebrity chefs are more concerned with their paycheck than they are with the garbage that they're feeding to the consumers and the fans that helped them become rich and famous in the first place. The late great Anthony Bourdain would have a field day with these guys if he was still alive. So far, Gordon Ramsay, Guy Fieri, and now Andrew Zimmern should be absolutely embarrassed. Right now, my opinion is based only on one meal from each celebrity that I've tried so far, so maybe, just maybe, they can redeem themselves with future meal reviews from me, the person. So with that said, Andrew Zimmern's meatloaf with mashed potato meal is going to get a 4 out of 10. And he gets a 4 because now I know he can make a damn good meatball. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.